All right. I'm Guy Sengstock,
And I'm Kathy Courtney.
and we are going to take an opportunity here and go over a circle that we did. I think it was a couple of years ago at the Art of Circling, which is a year-long training program that both Kathy and I lead now. We lead it in Nashville and also in Berkeley. So there's a lot. I'm imagining for if you're watching this that you have some kind of exposure to circling. For you, but also for the people who maybe don't have a whole lot of exposure to circling. Essentially, circling is a practice of relating or being with what is, and especially being with what is in a relational context. And it started about 20 years ago, and it started spontaneously. We weren't planning on, starting a movement or a practice or anything like that. There was just a really an amazing relational experience that we had with a group of people. And me and my friend Jerry just started really paying attention to it and just committed to bringing it out in the world. And 20 years later, circling's all over the world. Um, and one of the things that I've noticed is that there's very little video out there that actually captures the magic of circling. And we just happened to have a video where we had like a bunch. So we had a professional photographer there, and we had like 4 different cameras. And this is a circle with a woman named Vanessa, who is in the course, and it's me circling her. And we just want to take the opportunity and just go through segment by segment a whole circle. We'll be talking about things like the 7 stages of circling, which we'll be kind of introducing as we go along in the video. Anything that you want to add as far as context goes?
Yeah, thanks. So we'll be looking at the stages. We may also be looking at some of the nuances that Guy inhabits in his circling. It's easy to get technical and say, we need to have this, this, and this element, but really the magic of circling happens kind of beyond and outside the structure that we've created to try to explain what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to, at times maybe ask Guy some questions about what's happening for him in the circle and, his choice making. And, we may be paying attention to things that are a little bit outside of the structure of the 7 stages.
And I would bet that at some point there's going to be something that you notice that I'm doing or that happened in the circle that I didn't even realize that I was doing, that you see, and I'll learn more about what circling is. And I think it's fractal that way, and that's been my experience. Is I've never quite encountered anything. The closest that's come to it is the experience I have of when I do art, where there's something about it that grabs my interest and sustains it. And the more I bring my interest to it, the more complex and interested I become, in a very enriching circle, if you will, a feedback loop. So I'm imagining that that's probably going to happen today, just as we're looking at this. So we'll all be learning together.
Cool. Let's get started.
Okay. So we'll just take a deep breath.
All right, everyone, close your eyes. Home base first. Sovereignty. Feel your breath. Sense your sensations. Feel your butt in your chair on my floor. Feel your laugh. Your thoughts. And take another deep breath and just kind of feel that kind of essentially you. And as you do, slowly open your eyes, and while staying home, just look around the room. You say, literally and like ritualistically, just acknowledge other we. And then everyone bring their attention to this fountain of consciousness. And then take a moment, just like breathe her in, drink her in, like kind of like she's wine. Just notice the impact. And just one word. I just want to start with everyone. Just like one word, whatever's there for you. Just as you bring your attention to her, just one word that's there. And I'll go first. Wonder.
Beauty.
Feminine.
Flow.
Guy, can you pause?
Radiant.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about what happened. Everything got really quiet, and there was a sense of, as soon as you set the context, you had her open her eyes, and then you asked people to share a word. There was like a quality of sacredness that entered the space. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, it's very much, to begin a circle is very much like completing a circle. Beginnings and ends, right? And having some kind of formality in the beginning and the end. Basically, just for one thing, it serves to shift from whatever state of mind we were in into a different state of mind. And so it brings everyone's attention in, and it acknowledges that something significant is happening. So it sets context. The thing that I specifically did was all about like kind of guiding when I said, okay, sovereignty first, home base, which is the first stage of circling, which is the grounding of the practice. So first we become present to self, our own sense of sovereignty, knowing what I feel, what I think, what I'm experiencing, what my truth is. And then I had them then go to other, notice her, and notice what it was like to have her in your attention. And then just whatever that relationship, if it was consolidated in one word, just to speak it. And there's something about just presencing that just seems to ground everyone's attention and intention.
Yeah, great. I also noticed you said sip her in like wine.
Yeah. Yeah. You like that.
Yeah.
And there's a specific reason why I think I said that is I don't know a whole lot about wine, but I know a lot of people that have put a lot of their attention and intention into wine. And therefore they have a lot of distinctions in wine. And I can only have an experience about something that I have a distinction for. And I can only make choices about things I have a distinction for. So the more distinctions you have about wine, when you drink that wine, the more of the wine will be available to you to experience. And so there's also kind of a sense of just like bringing in that metaphor is we're going to bring our attention to this person, to ourselves, and our attention is going to begin to make distinctions about what's happening. And then we can start to relate to that and watch, just like wine unfolds. We're going to watch her unfold.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Keep going.
Mystery.
Love. Tenderness. Tenderness.
Complex. Divine courage.
Horse.
Fire. Movement. Bird of prey.
Committed.
Heart.
softness and wisdom.
Hey. I noticed there was moisture coming up to your eyes. Like 2 or 3 different occasions, it seemed like there was weather happening there. What is the weather? What are you feeling?
It's like I'm sitting here hearing these words coming from other points of consciousness, and it's like seeing the contrast between my own thoughts of myself and others. And so it just caused me to feel love in a way that I don't give to myself.
So some of the emotion came up when you felt the contrast. Is that what I heard? Between like what you would think or what you would maybe say, or implicitly or explicitly, and what you heard from them.
Yes.
And something about that contrast like broke up in love, or had you feel love?
Yes. And it had me feeling sadness for like all the stuff, all the words I have with myself to try to contain this image that I want to like hold on to. And it's like so violent.
So it's like you felt sadness, you felt love, and you felt loved, and then at the same time or closely after that, there's this sadness.
For the lack of love for myself.
So yeah, this thing. Like, what is this thing?
This thing?
Yeah, this thing.
Yeah, a couple things I wanted to point out. So, we're beginning the explorer phase, like trying to get her world. And I loved how you brought up, you noticed, you called it moisture and weather. And what's the weather happening? And for me, it feels so, it's an open-ended exploration. There's not even any meaning that you've placed on crying. Just that word alone, crying, seems to have some energy to it, but you called it weather. Mm-hmm. And then also, a couple of times I've noticed in your paraphrasing of what she's sharing, there's a way that I see you actually embodying the paraphrasing. You're not just saying back to her what you heard, but you're actually physically kind of moving as you're paraphrasing in a way that it seemed to be impacting you in your physiology. I'm wondering if you can speak to that a little bit more.
Totally. Well, the thing about one of the premises that has become really clear in circling is to really notice when we have assumptions about other people and own them as our assumptions if we have them, and at the best, don't have them. And I think that speaks to something that I think is really true about people, is that there's something about a person that can't be conceptualized, can't be fully known, possibly even to ourselves. It's a deep mystery, a genuine I-thou versus an I-it relationship. So you're not a means to my end, right? You're not an object I can know about in some way. I can kind of comport you that way, and there's ways in which, when we work together, I have to see you like that. But when I relate to you as a thou, I see you as an end as an end in yourself. And as Buber would talk about it, it's spoken as I thou or I it, that they arise together. So if you can kind of feel the difference when I relate to you as thou, you can kind of feel the difference in the I that emerges at the same time. And I think that links right into kind of like the way that that you're referring to my paraphrasing. There is a sense of like, in that moment, I'm being with her. I'm not making any assumptions about her, right? And I'm hearing what she's saying, and it's almost like, in a certain sense, I'm paraphrasing it to kind of walk my way into her world and get a sense. And for me, I'm really visual spatial, right? So I use my hands a lot. And so somebody else may be maybe a little bit more still, or somebody would use less words in paraphrasing. You know, there's no right way of doing it, but the paraphrase, as you could say, is like, I'm kind of taking, I'm exploring, I'm taking what she's saying, and I'm noticing differences and contrasts, and I'm kind of bringing them into my nervous system.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I love what you said, walk your way into her experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Great.
Okay.
The thing you held up your hand and you're like,
That's like my self-image, like what I have to contain to exist in the world,
hmm.
to like exist within myself, so I don't disappear.
Oh, okay, that struck me. Like a little electric bolt that went through me. Like this image I have to, the word have to, maintain in order to exist in the world.
Right?
I just got this sense as you're talking that this has been kind of an interesting weekend for you, huh?
It's been pulling together like all the sort of thoughts, study, like I've been paying attention to what you're posting, and I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about the yin yang. I've been thinking about how I apply the order and the chaos and like where I live. I've been thinking about the different facets of my personality that keep me safe and in the walls of safety and in order. And so, yes, it's been like really validating and like bringing more layers of insight that, so I'm feeling excited. Like I'm really excited to like feel that bottom line, like what it feels to cross over that like structure of myself into like who I really am.
Okay, I'm going to pause there just to give some, because she's talking about some things, the context of the weekend. So that weekend was, I believe, she's referring to some teaching pieces that we did, which have to do with, you know, like being authentic as being a whole congruency from like the surface all the way down to the deepest depth, to the deepest mystery. And so authenticity is to the degree that how I show up is reflective of the deepest part of ourselves. And so we talked about one of the things is we get these kind of lines or these dividing lines where we lose contact with our own depth. And then we start to do these compensations that we may call something like inauthenticity. So she's referring to some of the theory, but like I would say that even more so, I think when I said like, it's been an interesting weekend for you, I said something like that. And what I'm doing there is starting to feel into the context of how things are showing up for her the way that they are, including that moment with me. So you can kind of get this sense of just like, oh, she's like grappling with these kind of really deep, rich experiences, and she wants to confront places that she's not connected with herself all the way. And she's yearning for it, right? And she's been in an inquiry of depth with the homework that she's been having. And so there's that, you can start to feel that background context in what she cares about and what she values.
Uh-huh.
And that, you know, they say that with, you know, there's no such thing as meaning without context, right? It's the context that gives the meaning. And that's a pretty modern discovery. I mean, we used to always think like, you know, hundreds of years ago, we thought the meaning was out in the world. But the postmodern discovery is that actually, no, the meaning is in the observer, which is another way of saying context. So as an observer, right, I bear or bring my context on the world, and the world shows up for me and glistens in the particular way that it does given the context that happens. So when I was like, it's been an interesting weekend, and she gave all that context, I'm starting to get some of the structure of her world.
Mm-hmm. And I loved how like she gave you all the context or the meaning, and then she was like, I'm excited.
Yeah, totally. Which see, it just makes me laugh. It's almost like you can kind of feel just in that little thing, you can start to feel some of the essential qualities of this human being, right? Like, all right, let's die. I'm excited, right? It's like you can start to feel who this person is coming to the foreground.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll go one more round here.
Okay.
And I think I've been searching for that my whole life. And I'm just seeing like all the subconscious like stuff that I've sort of been doing and am and all and seeing how not useful it is. But there's still this grasping of like wanting to exist. Like wanting to still exist in this like physical world.
Pause 1 second. It struck me. There's still a grasping of wanting to exist. See, you're like the twinkle in your eye, like the little background smile. That's occurred to me through almost like a through line through everything that you've been talking. So you've been talking, just made sense to me. It's almost like
Yeah. Would you call this a warrior moment? You're pausing her. You're like, that struck me.
Yeah.
Repeating back the wanting to exist and the little smirk or the smile on the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. It's a warrior. So if we say that warrior, sovereignty, right? When I said, oh, that struck me. Like I'm owning my own experience, right? Like that struck me. It may not have struck somebody else. It may have made somebody else cry, but it struck me, right? So presence that's kind of sovereignty. And then right there, what is that? Like, and then I just started to I started to notice patterns that were going on. And that little smirk as a through line. See, this is what's really cool about circling. This is where circling can start to get at, like really start to reveal blind spots that we didn't have, we didn't see, but also like incredibly beautiful things. It's amazing how beautiful people are. And it's probably even more stunning how beautiful people are, and they don't notice, and they don't know it, right? And a lot of times because it hasn't been seen. It's one of the beauties of circling is that she, so part of the world, there's the world that she knows about that she can articulate, but then there's the world that's animating from her that's kind of really close in. She can't see the smirk, right? So I'm like, right there, that seemed meaningful to me because it struck me.
Yeah. And like just right now where we have the frame paused, I'm just noticing like what I'm imagining is like a sense of wonderment in your eyes at seeing that. And like I can really see just how very much invested you are in exploring her world right now and the seeing.
Totally. And I think as I was looking at myself going, yeah, on one level, I'm really with her. That's one way. That's one thing I'm in wonder about. It's like, there's this quality of like, who are you? Like, what is that smirk? Like you're talking about things, especially because she's talking about things that most people avoid like the plague. Like, I want to find out where I'm stuck and go drop through that line. She's like, that's striking. And I feel impressed by it. But there's also this other level, which I think has deepened in the practice of circling, which is what for me makes circling a spiritual practice, is I'm not only learning about her, but I'm also learning about the universe. Like I'm like literally looking at the cosmos, like like a little vulnerable nub in the cosmos looking at itself. So there's, on one level, there's her and her personal life and me and my personal life and the context that we're in. But on another level, what that's connected to is very, very, very vast. And especially here I am in front of a human being that's connected to all of that, and they have a mouth and they can tell me what they think about it. Like, there is a wonderment to that. So there's a number of different levels that my personal interest really come out with this.
Yeah, that is so important, because I think that gets missed a lot with people that are learning the practice, that, you know, in the effort of trying to do it right and, you know, do all the right steps and not project and just all the different moving parts, that they forget to feel like fully interested and actually, you know, fully be there with somebody in a way that they're being impacted, they're following their like genuine curiosity, finding their own wonderment. Like, that's the magic of circling.
Yeah, I agree.
Methinks.
Methinks too. This seems like probably a good place to pause at this point. All right. So, any closing words for you before we'll pick it up in the next one?
Yeah, I think I would just say there's so many infinite. It feels like there's infinite ways and things to tune into here. So, like, just noticing that if we did this on a different day, we may have picked up totally different pieces of it. And that I feel so excited to do this with you. It's so much fun to break this down and bring words to the experience and find out more about, you know, what's happening in your brain.
Yeah, totally. I'm enjoying this too. I'm enjoying watching you watch this and watching me watch this. It's so hermetic in that way. And there's something about, like, and the other thing I just want to presence is as I was talking about before, really in the practice of circling, it's really a practice of how profoundly can we be with what is. So I'm really present to that. Like, what is right now? Like, what is happening is where I'm coming from and the whole room's coming from. It's not like we're trying to get her to go over some line or get her to solve a problem or anything like that. It's more like, well, who is she? Who am I with you? Who is everyone with her? What's actually happening? And the paradox of that is that, you know, human beings aren't like objects in time and space walking around. We conceive of ourselves that way, but really that's not our experience. We are, as Nietzsche would say, we are the being that in our being overcomes itself, right? We are self-overcoming. And it's interesting to think about that. It's like, well, what's in the way of our own becoming? Ourselves. What is that self? It's a self that overcomes itself. And so, in a certain sense, this is circling. If we're going to be with what is, and on some level, we're going to encounter the moment I put my attention on it is the moment it starts to overcome or transform or change. And then we can notice that change, which alters the experience of being ourselves. And we can notice that. And what I've noticed is that there is a certain self-organizing wholeness that comes out of that cycle of paying attention that way, that is just ends up being really healing and ends up being really transforming and life-changing, and even goes into non-dual realms, which are none of the goals of it, but they're oftentimes the outcome.
I notice when I listen to you speak and you get, you know, more philosophical like that, I have to listen from a completely different place within myself. I literally feel myself like sitting back and like resting in kind of the back of my brain and opening up to like some other form of information that's coming in. Does that make sense?
You just described listening really well. It makes a lot of sense.
And I just trust, like, my body is soaking that in, my nervous system is soaking in that information, but I can't hold on to all the words and make absolute sense of each word.
Totally.
So yeah, so it just requires a different kind of listening.
Yeah, and I think that that's the important part of listening deeply. Is there are kinds of listenings where I really do need to pay attention to what you say, but then there's like listening not for information, but listening to something like like a person, like a philosophy. The point is to be changed by, in some way, the experience of listening, right? So it's where I sit in listening that ends up being the experience of it.
So cool. I love it.
All right, so to be continued.
Okay.
We'll call this completion of part 1.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.